Call of Duty. What is going on, people? My name is Batman, and I am almost certain that there will be a Battlefield title coming out in this fine year of 2014. I know some other people on forums and other channels have been starting to put the pieces together, and I was actually skeptical of this growing consensus at first, but there's one piece of information that basically seals the deal for me. There's one simple and clear fact that leaves very little doubt in my mind that something is coming from Battlefield this year, and Battlefield is transitioning into an annual release, and that is that the final DLC, named Final Stand in honor of everyone's favorite thing to do in Call of Duty, is set for release this summer in 2014. Now, they haven't specified an exact date, but summer 2014 means that at the latest we're talking early September, but at the earliest, June. That means this DLC is being released 6 or even potentially 9 months earlier in the game's lifespan than we saw the final Battlefield 3 DLC release. This DLC rotation is nearly identical to Call of Duty's annual DLC rotation, but what is most important to understand is that it would be very, very unusual if EA elected to go an entire year without Battlefield DLC coming out unless there was something else in the works related to Battlefield. Because DLC isn't just about the money. The other huge factor in the equation is keeping people's attention, keeping people in the Battlefield loop. For the same reason everyone and their dog wants to give you daily Facebook posts that are more often than not just saying the same shit. That's what it's about, audience retention. The pattern we have observed up to this point with not only Battlefield but every game is that they don't stop doing DLC unless they are about to start hyping the next game. DLC is audience retention, stringing you along, keeping you interested in Battlefield until they release the next game, because every time they release a new DLC, it encourages people to get back on the game and try out the new maps. They tell their friends to come play with them, and this statistically increases the chances that said players will buy the next Battlefield, and the more time you spend on their game, the less opportunity there is for you to get interested in other things like pussy or drugs or, worst of all, Call of Duty. Now, on top of this, the other argument I would make is that whenever you're surrounded by horse shit, there's probably a pony somewhere. If it was just one dude on the internet proclaiming the annualization of the franchise, then I would be skeptical, but you have a lot of gaming news outlets, even as reputable as IGN, writing stories about the potential annualization of Battlefield. If you go Google anything like Annual Battlefield or Battlefield 5, Battlefield 2014, or anything like that, you find a lot of different people saying a lot of different things. There's actually a lot of speculation out there that the next Battlefield is police themed. Who knows? But things are being said is the point. There are whispers in the night, and that might even be intentional on EA's part. I know that they all do this selective leaks thing, just like every other business in the world, to generate buzz early on. Maybe that's what this is. And most of it is unconfirmed directly by EA, but here's the key quote from a couple of months ago that I picked up on when they were asked to comment on Battlefield going annual. The EA rep said, and I quote, "We are not announcing the annualization of Battlefield at this time." Emphasis on the part where they say at this time. At this time, at this time. People who want to sell you things always speak in tongues. And to me, that quote is code for we will be announcing the annualization of Battlefield at some point. Someone is leaking shit, someone is giving these news outlets cause, and that someone is taken seriously enough by professional reporters to be reported on. And I'll include some of those links to the relevant articles in the description so you can check them out for yourself. And in conjunction with all of this, we know a new DICE studio has been created. We now have DICE Stockholm and DICE LA, and my understanding is that DICE LA is working on the next expansion pack, while DICE Stockholm works on something else. And the other thing to keep in mind is DICE itself seems to be capable of working on multiple projects at a time, even multiple big ones. For instance, at the time of Battlefield's release, they were at the same time working on Battlefield DLC and Star Wars Battlefront, and that pissed people off when the game was so buggy at launch, and that's why EA had them halt work on all those other projects. But it does tell us that they are capable of working on multiple projects at once, and presumably those projects have been resumed. Now with Battlefield 3, we saw the final DLC come out 6 months before the next game. And right as it came out, what you might call the hype train for Battlefield 4 started rolling, right? The train consisting of small drip-drop doses of information from the developers' teaser trailers that slowly evolve into reveal trailers and TV ads and so on and so forth. So going forward, the most plausible scenario in my eyes is that a new Battlefield comes out at the end of this year in November, a week before the new COD. The reasoning behind this is that, for one, their DLC schedule will be ending right at the same time as Call of Duty's, and if you look at it from the business side, EA wants there to be an alternative to COD this year, right? That's why the last 2 Battlefield releases, they put the game out a week before COD drops, because they want to make players choose between one or the other. They want to steal as many of COD's 20 million or so ripe FPS players and make them Battlefield players. And they've had some success with that strategy, but the problem is if Call of Duty launches unopposed this year, they stand to lose players back to COD, and then they will have to compete for those same players all over again whenever the next Battlefield does finally release. Whereas if they release a Battlefield side by side with COD this year, all the Battlefield players they've brought over from COD are much more likely to buy another Battlefield instead of buying COD. Because by the time the next Call of Duty drops, even people who prefer Battlefield over COD at this point are likely to switch, just because after a year or so, you know, they're ready to move on to a new shooter. Shooters get old, and if a different Call of Duty is the only option available, they'll go that route just because it's a new shooter. Or maybe it's Destiny or the new Halo that are also due at the end of the year. Either way, Battlefield will be losing players to different games, and there's no guarantee that those players will come back at the end of 2015. And quick tip, it's important to remember, you know, we have to think of the year starting in January and ending in December. Just to clarify, like, I know a lot of people probably suffer from the same problem I have, which is what we go by the school year. We think of the year starting in August and ending in July. I have that problem even after being out of school for 2 years. But, you know, that's just something to keep in mind to keep yourself properly oriented, right? And then the game's always released at the end of the year, right before Christmas. Now, the reason Battlefield doesn't just wait until COD has been out for like 6 months and players are ready to move on to another AAA shooter if it's available, and for the same reasons I was talking about them being ready to move on to COD after Battlefield has been out for a year, is that Battlefield wants that Christmas market. That's where the fucking gold mine is. Battlefield is going to sell more competing with COD directly for Christmas than they would with no competition at any other time of the year. That's why they come out in November. They want everybody to buy the game, spread the word, then get fat-ass massive sales peaks right in time for Christmas, and then suck the DLC out of that group for the rest of the year. So their primary strategy is beating Call of Duty in the Christmas market, but they will be at a disadvantage whenever they do finally decide to release the next Battlefield if they let Call of Duty go unopposed this year, because if those players get back on Call of Duty and play Call of Duty for a whole year, and meanwhile there's nothing new from Battlefield, they'll probably lose a lot of the gains they've worked so hard to earn up to this point. And so all of this taken together is convincing enough to me that I felt the urge to make a video about it, and I thought I would just share my suspicions with the world. I could be totally wrong, but I'm telling you, that is so unusual if they decide to go a whole year without any DLC coming out for Battlefield. Oh, and Star Wars Battlefront doesn't come out till 2015, okay? I know some motherfuckers are going to be, you know, mentioning Star Wars and that's the next project, but that's not coming out till around when the new movie comes out, which is summer 2015. And what's interesting about that is that even if Battlefield is still on its biannual release, its 2-year release, that would mean that Star Wars Battlefront was competing directly with Battlefield, and I'm not sure they would want that. So that even that makes me think it's more likely that we see a Battlefield release this year in 2014. But feel free to share your own hypotheses, because I know you motherfuckers got them. If you know, smoke if you got them. Please remember to rate the video. It means a lot to me. This is Batman, signing out.
I'm getting fucked up the ass over here!